Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Lydia's Crafty Corner with me, Lydia, in my little crafty corner. This is part of our February release video hop, so please make sure that you hop to the other inspiration after this is finished. So I am going to be starting with the fabulous new crafter flower, and this is the Bearded Iris. This is so pretty. It does have the keyhole system on here. Also, when you die cut this, you can see those little lines within the petals. They're actually going to emboss, so you're going to be able to create some texture with this as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add all of the elements from this onto a white piece of cardstock, and I'm just going to cut that using my Platinum 6. So I'm just going to run that through, and this is just a normal piece of Classic Crest Solar White cardstock, and it is the £80. You could use a thicker one if you wanted to, but I have gone with the thinner. So once I've cut those all out, I'm then going to go ahead and add some colour. So first off, I have added all of the leaves to my 9x12 sticky mat, and I'm then going to add some colour to all of these leaves. So I'm going to be using some beautiful greens, the greens that I'm using. So for the base, I have gone with the Antique Olive. I'm then using Olive, and I'm going kind of 3/4 up the way of the leaf on that one. And then I'm going to be using the Sugar Kelp just at the bottom. So again, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using the Antique Olive all over the leaf, all the way up to the top. I'm then going to be taking the Olive, which is the one in the center, and I'm going to be going just like 3/4 of the way up on that one, and I'm then going to be taking the Sugar Kelp, the ink that I have at the bottom, and I'm just going to be going 1/3 of the way up on the leaf on there. So I'm going to be doing all of the leaves in exactly the same way. So I have tons of beautiful leaves to use. I did in fact do too many, so I am going to use some of these on a kind of future project as well. So just to repeat the colours again, we're going with the Antique Olive all over the kind of leaf or stem. Then we're going to go 3/4 of the way or 2/3 of the way with the Olive, and then the Sugar Kelp we're just going to add at the bottom to add that really dark area, to add some beautiful interest and dimension. So once my leaves were dry, I then wanted to add a little bit deeper colour. So I just went in again with the Sugar Kelp and a little bit of that fabulous Olive colour just to add some more depth to these. Once that was done, I'm then going to move ahead and I'm going to colour in the flowers. I'm going to use the same technique before. So I'm going to be using 3 colours. One's going to go all over the base, which is this beautiful amethyst colour that we have. I'm then going to move on to a darker shade, and I'm going to kind of go 3/4 of the way with that one. And for this one, I've gone in with the Grape Agate for the mid-tone. And then for the darkest colour, I'm going to go in with Plum, and I'm going to add that to the kind of base of the petal. As you can see, because we have that kind of embossed lines on here, the ink is going slightly into them a little bit more, so it's going to give you a bit more interest and some depth like that. So I'll just go over the colours again that we are going to use for these fabulous petals. So we have the Amethyst, which is going to go all over, and then the mid-tone, which is going to go kind of 3/4 away up the petal, is the Grape Agate. And then the darkest tone that we have is the Plum. I am using a mini blending tool for this because the petals are quite small. You could definitely use a larger one if you wanted to, or even a smaller one, completely what you feel comfortable with. So once these petals dried, I've wanted a kind of deeper bottom to them. So I'm just going to add a little bit more of that Plum and Grape Agate to add that darker tone to the base of the petals. So once I'm happy with that, I'm then going to move on to the little pieces, the little stamen pieces that we have in the iris. I'm going to start with Amber Blaze over the entire piece, and I'm then going to add some of the melted butterscotch just at one of the edges to add that deeper tone and add that really beautiful gradient look that we get from ink blending with multiple colours. So once I'm done with all of my ink blending and my petals are nicely dried, I'm then going to go ahead and stick these together. So I just have some wet glue over to the side on that piece of scrap paper that I have, and I'm just going to add the petals together. As you can see, we do have the keyhole system, and this makes it so easy to get the petals in the perfect position the first time. So you don't need to kind of look at the layering guide, you just need to look at that die cut shape in the center of the image, and that's going to show you how things need to go. Now this petal here is a little bit different from any petal that we've ever done before, and this shows that you're going to kind of do a mountain fold, and you're going to glue the opposite side, so this can kind of bend over later on and cover the little keyhole system that we have there. So that's really gonna add a different look to this. It's really easy to do. It sometimes can be a little bit fiddly, especially if you're using a little bit of wet glue. It does take some time to dry, but it is going to be perfect. And you can see just how pretty that is going to be there. I am going to add a little bit of foam tape under that so I can kind of get that dimension and keep it exactly how it is. So once I have that petal in place, I'm just going to keep going, adding the other ones, just lifting that one up slightly and then kind of adding them underneath the petal, so everything's going to be kind of covered over later. So we're just going to keep going with this. I think this is the last petal for this one here. So I'm just going to lift that petal over that we folded over and then just add that one underneath. Again, lining that up with the triangle die cut that we have, just squidging that down, and there you can see just how pretty that is. So like I said, I am going to add a little bit of foam tape to some of these petals just to lift them up from each other and keep that dimension. Now, while I was filming this, I didn't have the varying thicknesses of the foam tape that we have now, so I did just kind of double some of these up, but you wouldn't need to do that now. We do have the fabulous new sizes of foam tape, so you can definitely add different variants of style and height to these just by using the different foam tapes rather than having to trim them up or even kind of doubling them up to add a different look. I'd added all of the petals together. I am going to add the stamens in, and I'm just going to add a tiny bit of glue just to kind of glue them on one side and then add them into place. So this is what I was talking about when I said that I'm doubling some up. So I'm just going to fold that piece over, but like I said, we do have the double thickness foam tape now, so you wouldn't need to do that. You would just need to get the fabulous new thicker foam tape, and that would give you the double height on your foam tape. So that's one of the flowers put together, and now I'm going to go for the second one. Now this one does have a stem attached, so the die cut that we have, which is the keyhole system of the little keyhole here, is in the stem as well, so you can get this perfectly placed first time. This one is so easy to put together. There's going to be no kind of mountain folds on this one. This is just the normal keyhole system, where we're just going to add one on top of the other. Because we have the little numbers as well embossed onto the die cuts, you don't even need the layering guide. You're going to see exactly which one goes where and which one needs to go next. Just going to add some foam tape just to add a little bit of dimension on there, just to keep everything perfectly kind of spaced away from each other. I'm then going to use some of that foam tape as well for these other little pieces that look as though the petal that we have is folded over. So that's going to add a different definition there. Once the petals are all in place, I'm then going to add the little bearded pieces of the stamen, just adding a tiny touch of glue to the side and then just tucking that in to the petals. I can then add the little kind of bud top that we have here. There's got to be a scientific name for this, but there are two pieces just to add that into place and then cover over the keyhole system. So there we go. I now have my two flowers. It was at this point I then wanted to add a little bit of a difference. So I'm going to be using the Relief Shimmer Paste, and this is the pearl. And you don't necessarily have to use this with stencils. I found that you can use it with a paintbrush and add a little bit of detail with it that way. So I'm just going to scoop a bit out of the tub onto a scrap piece of paper. And I'm then just going to kind of roughly add some of this to the darker spots on the petals. So I'm just going to kind of go in from the base and flick outwards with my paintbrush. The paint itself, or the relief paint itself, is kind of thick. So you can definitely water this down a little bit if you wanted to. But I'm happy with the thickness. If you do add some water, it is going to kind of thin it out. So you're not going to have this really deep coverage that I have here. It will be more translucent. So I've just gone in with it as it is and just adding that to the base and then flicking it out with my paintbrush. I would recommend that when you have finished to kind of wash your paintbrush straight away. The paste itself is water-based, so you are able to wash it off when it's wet, but when it's dry, you are going to have trouble trying to get this out of your paintbrush. So I would definitely, as soon as you have finished with it, just go and clean that off. I'm then going to use the same relief paste, but in a different way this time. So the kind of traditional way of using it with a stencil. I have the linked spots and dots here. And I'm just going to add that stencil onto a piece of parchment cardstock. And I'm just going to add some of that pearl shimmer paste through the stencil onto the cardstock beneath. I'm not trying to cover the whole piece. I do want to have some of that parchment poking through from the edges. So I'm just adding a little kind of dollop and then spreading that out. Whatever is kind of on your palette knife, you can pop back into your pot and then just reseal it, and then you'll be good to go. Once I remove this stencil, again, I'm going to recommend that you clean this off as soon as you can. That's going to give you a really quick clean, and also it's not going to stick to the stencil. Once my panel has dried, I'm then going to add it onto a card base. So I have a 4 1/4 by 5.5 card base here, and I'm just going to be sticking the panel onto it using some of the ultra sticky tape and just adding that on, removing the backing, and then adding the panel into place. This is a little bit damp still, so I'm trying to be very careful to add that panel on. I'm then going to play around with my kind of composition of the flowers before I stick anything down. So nothing is stuck down as such. I just want to kind of play around with the elements that I have first before really kind of sticking these down and being committed to the design. So once I'm kind of happy with the overall look, I'm then going to use some of the Altenew glue tape and start sticking these elements down. So for the leaves, I'm going to be using mostly glue tape, but for the flowers, I am going to be using the Instant Dimension foam tape to add a bit of lift to these to bring them closer to you, so it looks like there's going to be more dimension, which there is. So I'm just adding those back into place. Once I'm happy with where the flowers are, I'm then going to add in the leaves. So like I said, so for the leaves, I am going to be using a mix of foam tape and also some of the glue tape as well. So I'm just going to pop those into place. I love this kind of vibrant green that we have going here with that really dusky, muted purple. I think it looks so, so pretty, so fresh, but yet vintage at the same time. It's just cool. I love it. And I think it's very pretty. As you can see there, I have used one of the leaves. I've cut it in half, and I'm going to be using that twice. You can see that my petal keeps opening up there. It's because the ink itself wasn't that dry. So I'm just going to keep kind of pushing that down, and then it will stick perfectly. For my sentiment, I've gone into my sentiment stash, and I have here one from the fabulous Essential Sentiments hot foil plate, and I am going to kind of use that one that I already had done and just add that to my project. And you can see that my project is now complete. I love how this turned out. I love the shine that we have on those petals, and you can see it really well in these kind of pictures here. Please remember to take a look at the other inspiration in the video hop, We really do hope that you spotted something in here that inspires you and makes you want to create something beautiful. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again soon. Friend Lydia here, just popping in to say that you can get your daily dose of crafting tips, techniques and tutorials just like this by subscribing to the Altenew YouTube channel. All you need to do is click on that little bell up there and you will never miss a video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.